Welcome back, ladies and gents, to my episode review and analysis on RWBY Volume 2. Another week off for a World of Remnant extra on the Kingdoms. We're now heading off to the closing arc of this volume with Field Trip. First off, spoiler warning. As I said, folks, this is the final arc of the volume, so do you really think you want to risk spoiling yourself? Last week we had the conclusion to the Beacon Ball with some romance, some arguments, a lot of dancing, and Cinder working her magic in many ways, leading into this episode following phase 2 of her plan. So, is the aftermath of these events a good kicker to the home stretch of the volume? Let's find out. We open with a bit of a heated argument between Ozpin, Glinda, and Ironwood, who, after coming across the conclusion of the fight between RWBY and Cinder, is clearly very angry that their foes were able to do something right under their noses, and Ironwood wants action. But before he can cause Ozpin and Glinda any more headaches, RWBY arrives called in to give any information that she has on the masked woman, who must be one of the many out there who has this unique hairstyle, and thus why RWBY's not connecting the dots between the two. But I digress, and RWBY, after trying to lift the mood with a joke about a bad guy's stopping track record, gets praised by Ironwood for, as he says, doing exactly what being a huntress is all about. Question, perhaps he might be trying to butter her up, but it's hard to get a grasp on James' motives. Whether or not he's just being dedicated to stopping the threat a tad too much, or he actually has a bit of an ulterior motive, well, we'll see later on. RWBY is still unsure who the woman was, but does mention that the dust attack that she used was dust-infused glass, no doubt tying into Cinder being based on Cinderella, and that her clothes lit up when attacking, which helps Glinda link her to the time that she fought Cinder in episode 1, and connects the two there. Still, it seems not enough for them to link her with Torchic or the White Fang, until RWBY decides to take a risk and hint to the masked woman saying something about a hideout in the southeast. Of course, we know that it wasn't Cinder who said this, but Torchic, when Blake and Sun were undercover as part of the team's investigations. But of course, RWBY can't mention that without being in trouble, though it seems that Ozpin has caught this, letting RWBY go back to her friends and into
extreme close-up!
With the new information from RWBY, Ironwood sees this as the cue to press a full-on attack on the southeast base of their enemies, which really ruffles up Glinda, even causing her to almost describe James's constant military mindset to danger as Ironwood trying to make things a dick measuring contest. Go Glinda! Ozpin, however, cuts her short and agrees with her. He obviously wants the threat to be stopped, but they still don't know what their enemies have in store, and they can't risk a full-on assault unprepared and unknowing of what they'll be facing. Much to James's displeasure, who mentions that he served Ozpin for years, which is an interesting side to him and how he's linked with Ozpin, and again finds his words as Ozpin sitting back and waiting for their enemies to cause harm, which surprisingly even gets Ozpin to raise his voice to prove a point. What do these guys have in their coffee today? The discussion ends for now, it seems, as Ozpin explains his reasoning. They need to scout their foes first, just like what Cinder's lot have done, to know exactly what may lie ahead, and thus give them some light, and not have them rushing in blindly. This in all was a very good scene, seeing more of how Ironwood and Ozpin stand in terms of what to do, and it was a very nice note to have RWBY's trust in Ozpin shown, with her letting him in on what info her lot have gained to help the cause. This very nugget she gave them seems to have gone down rather well with her friends, risky as it was, and it looks like that RWBY gets a reward for this. A package from Dad. Yep. Not only does RWBY get a gift, but now we know the name of her and Yang's dad, Mr. Tai Yang Xiaolong, which just sounds badass to me. Also, I don't know why, but I imagine him being voiced by either Bernie, Jeff, or even Gavin. Back to the gift though, and after RWBY reacts similar to how I react sometimes with the mail, what comes out of the tube? But a dog. Yep, somehow Tai Yang has some sort of power of controlling different spaces or something like that, because how on earth did he fit a dog that size into a tube that small, complete with a mountain of dog food and even a can opener? Meet Zwei, the family pet corgi of RWBY and Yang, sent to the girls from Tai Yang, as it seems that he's going to be away from home in Patch for a bit, and Zwei needs caring to. Much to Weiss's joy, which I'm glad that she's not being stubborn with, and makes for a cute moment, and to Blake's displeasure, showing that cat-like nature of hers. There's no time to play with Zwei though, as the bulletin is out for students to head to the main hall, but not before RWBY decides that Zwei should come along stuffing the lovable mutt into a bag. It seems like the students are going off into some field work at last for experience as a huntsman and a huntress, as we see Team RWBY, Team Juniper, and the rest of the Beacon and visiting students listen in on Ozpin giving a speech, which, a surprise to me, goes into a bit of lore here. He goes into the massive war that was nearly 80 years ago, the largest conflict in recorded history that's been hinted to in the past, which, in Ozpin's words, was fought over the very idea of individualism, no doubt tying into the issues of the humans and the faunist, and continuing on, those of greed and ignorance who wish to destroy all forms of self-expression, including art, from those who oppose them. Those who fought for freedom succeeded, and in tribute and as part of their legacy, would name their children after a key aspect of art: color. Yep, this speech actually sheds some light into why a lot of people have names that allude or outright are forms of color, like Ruby and Weiss. This being a sign of those who fought to protect their very individualism and fight oppression for generations to come. The reason for this speech in present times, though, is inspiration behind today's activity. The students shadowing a trained professional huntsman or huntress with a task, and see how their profession helps those in need. This being the window of opportunity for Team RWBY to head down to the southeast, and scope out what the White Fang are up to. Shame for them, it seems, that a task in that very area is off limits to first years, due to its high grim count, which I ask then, why is it there in the first place? Though it could be just Ozpin having a bit of fun as he slips in to chat. He mentions that he no doubt reckons that no matter what the four girls would have taken, they would have made an effort to go down to the enemy base regardless, especially given their track record with the fight at the docks, the actual events that led to them finding out the information about the base, and the resounding fights with the mech, though Ozpin plays cheeky and masks this under curiosity and unknowing, despite being very aware. Still, he decides that instead of letting the girls risk harm by trying to break the rules once more, they'll just bend the rules, giving them access to the job. Ozpin, you are getting very fun and likeable this volume. I'm digging this. Of course, it's not all fun and games though. He may trust the girls and understands their actions, but he still points out the danger ahead. They may be skilled, but they're going outside of the kingdom, and into a more risky setting than they may be ready for, saying that they are great as a team, but the world outside of the kingdoms won't play nice, and tells them to stick to their designated huntsman, for if he deems them not capable of the task they attempt to do, he'll stop them and send them back to Beacon. I guess he's still gotta be the serious headmaster. This does put the girls in a bit of a damper with that weighing on them, but they do realise that it's the truth. They are snapped out of their rut though by the arrival of the Tumblr favourite, Velvet, and the rest of Team Coffee, fresh from their very extended mission. We get a quick snippet of each member as they return, and it's nice to see them, even if only Velvet stops to chat. Fox looks very mysterious, and another fan fave, Coco, looks very cool, and I hope she has the personality to match her style, with the big Yatsuhashi bringing up the rear, who given Velvet's words, might be someone that she depends on a fair bit, as she says that he looked out for her on the mission. We also find out that her and her team aren't first years, but an older group, which makes the fact that she got bullied by a first year in Cardin a bit more sad really. But still, she's cute, and Katie's voice works well for her with that sort of kind tone to her. She gives the girls her very own well wishes and heads off, letting Team RWBY mull over what will come ahead, and the fact that they'll be working with a genuine huntsman. Is it someone new? Or maybe even Crow? Nope. The episode ends with the four looking confused and shocked, and maybe even a little bit scared, that they'll be tailing the very hyperactive professor that is Oobleck. And that means we can move on to my positives and negatives of the episode. It's another good sign in terms of negatives, as I honestly don't have much to say. I am a little bit distracted by some of the many repeated models for the students in the main hall shot, and the fact that RWBY still can't seem to pin down Cinder and the Mask Girl, despite a lot they share, but that's nitpicky at best. though I will admit that I would have liked to have seen more of Team Coffee, or at least hear the other guys speak, not just Velvet. The positives, however, are the bigger quantity here. Firstly, we got the surprise of some detail with regards to the war and the theming behind the names of the characters in the world, which was massively welcomed and helps give more flavour to this world. Not to mention, Ozpin, Glinda, and Ironwood were standouts for me, as we get to see more of how the threat affects them, and the conflicting stances, compared to seeing the younger lot react. With Ozpin having a majorly entertaining and engaging performance this episode, showcasing more that he's really becoming more entertaining and interesting in this volume, at least to me. And while it might be Monty and the gang perhaps adding in something cute and fluffy for the fun of it, Zwei and the scene revealing him was a very nice quirky bit of fun, especially with the 4 girls reacting to it, though no doubt he'll be involved in some shape or form since he's stowed away in Ruby's bag. The voice acting praise for this week, going alongside his character's strong performance, goes to the man behind the head of Beacon, Shannon McCormick, for one part confidence and maturity, and the other subtle charm and wit. So once more, for me, we get another Volume 2 episode that can go straight into the good folder. Volume 2 is really strong right now, even with some bumps, and with 4 episodes to go before it ends, we can expect there to be a lot of twists and turns, as we see Team RWBY and Oobleck walk us through our first sighting, in the show, of the world outside of the kingdoms. So, with the home stretch in sight, do you feel excited about the girls getting into action once more? Did the show's new fuzzy face charm you? And what do you think lies outside of Vale? Leave your comments below, your thoughts below, and if you want to subscribe too, go ahead. Or you can even check out my Twitter, where I make random posts that may or may not tie into RWBY. Regardless, I'll see you all next week for the next episode and review. Till then, peace out.